Alrighty, lesson 1. So in this first topic, we are for the first part, memory. So we've got these 3 topics in this first part of the PTSD unit plan, and really this could stand as its own mini unit, looking at the cognitive approach. We're going to start with the multi-store model of memory because it's the most basic and it makes for a good introduction into this, into the models of memory. And so we're looking at 3 lessons for the multi-store model. First, the introduction to it, then looking at the key study that shows the duration of the MSM, and then HM study, which is the biological evidence. So in this first lesson, the multi-store model, this is our guiding question. According to the multi-store model, how a memory is formed. And really what we want students at the end of this lesson, they can diagram the multi-store model. That's what we want them to be able to do. Now, a good entry ticket here is what's the purpose of a psychological theory. They just write it on a piece of paper, hand it in, and then if they finish, they can start reading. What we're looking, I'm hoping students are going to say something like, if it tries to explain a psychological phenomenon, or it tries to explain a behavior, it tries to explain, they're trying to think about the purpose of that theory, because what they're learning about in these first 2 topics are psychological theories. Then we can get into the traffic lights, since it's the first unit of the lesson, and they've got these terms here. The instructions are in the workbook in this, but they just color code. If you've used our support packs before, you'll know how this works. And then we can do a memory test as a bit of a hook. So there's a video here. They take the test, and I mean, my students are always competitive. They want to do as good as they can. But then afterwards, I'm going to ask them, what were they doing? And get them to try and reflect what were their strategies, or what were they doing cognitively to try and remember the items. And some of them, they might say things like they put it into a story, or they were trying to envision it. Some of them might have just been saying they were rehearsing it again and again. This obviously leads into those things that affect the transfer of information according to the multi-store model. And if you want to do that, there's another test there as well they can do. Then you can get students to talk about their childhood memories. And think about why they remember some stuff and not everything else. Sharing early childhood memories is something that always gets kids engaged into talking about memory. And then thinking what might affect their memory. And so maybe a few of them might have had similar memories that they're sharing, and then they might be able to think of ways that, or some things that might affect memory. And then in order to do the multi-store model, what I do is I partner students up. They sit back to back. And one student, on page 4, there's blank space for them to diagram, to draw. And on page 3, there's a summary of the multi-store model. There's also this information in the activities files as well, if you want to do it that way instead. And then what you have is, you have one student trying to explain the model, and the other student has to draw what they're explaining. Okay, and so I would encourage students not just to read the information, but they have to try and explain it in a way so that the student can draw an accurate diagram of it. And this is really just getting, it's a bit of talking and listening practice, and they're really trying to focus on the information, which is hopefully going to make it stick. And then once one person's the reader and the other's the drawer, then without looking at the drawing, they can swap. And they both get a turn at doing it, and then they can compare it to the book and read the summary in the book. And then this is just for chalk and talk, so they can compare how accurate theirs was to this. And then there's a section in the workbook for them to answer this question. Really, I mean, they're probably just going to, they might not know how, but really what we're looking for here is just a summary of the theory, right? So, well, if we pay attention to the sensory store information, it's going to transfer into our short term, and then if we go over it lots, then we're going to remember it for a long time. I mean, trying to use the words of the retrieval, attention, rehearsal, and the short-term sensory store, but really it's just a summary of the model is what we're looking for. And if they get ahead, they can look at, does this explain all types of memories, and thinking about the role of emotion might play in that process. And then, they can write down what they need to do for homework. Maybe an exit ticket, this could be an option, is, this is the first lesson of a unit. Maybe what are 3 things they're going to do to get better? That could be something that they can write down to do. Okay, the next lesson we're going to look at is duration and capacity. We look at Peterson and Peterson's study.